Yes, Joe. 143. The average is, the county average of Pike Point District is only 830. So we're
Call the meeting to order. Roll call, please. Mr. Bantha.
also
Mr. Rosenberg.
Present.
Mr. Barbarulo.
Where?
Mr. Swindell. Mrs. Frankel. Present. Mrs. Wallace. I am here. Mrs. Fiala. Here. Ms. Buck. Here. Please join me for the flag salute. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everyone. New Jersey Open Public Meeting Law was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and attend the meetings of the public bodies at which any business affecting their interests is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provision of this act, the Fair Lawn Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published by having the date, time, and place thereof distributed to the persons on the approved list, posted in the Board of Education Administrative Office, and sent to the Bergen Record and the Community News. The announcement for the regular monthly meeting, along with the date, place, and time thereof, was distributed on February 13th, 2015. The items to be discussed during the closed work session of March 19th, 2015 may include personnel matters, student matters, legal matters, negotiations and/or grievances, tactics and techniques utilized in protecting public safety and property. The results of these discussions will be made public as soon as possible. May I have an approval of the minutes for the regular monthly meeting of February 26th, the executive closed session of February 26th, the adoption of the preliminary budget meeting on March 16th, and the executive closed session on March 16th.
So, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Board comments? Mary?
Yes, I want to go on the record. I was not here at the Monday night meeting, which was the vote for the budget. I was at a conference, but I want to go on the record that I 100% am in support of our budget. And would have voted yes if I were in the room.
Thanks, Mary. Any other board comments? Mike?
I wanted to make a comment, especially because Mr. Huff, where's Mr. Huffman go?
He's doing a call for some of his teachers.
Well, especially because Mr. Huffman was here. On social media, a couple weeks ago, or last week, there was a message from a parent of an infant, and it involved Dunkin' Donuts on River Road, and she said that how touched she was because the middle school kids that were there after school, I think it said 3 boys, opened the door for her. They offered to wash her carriage of her kids, and she said it said so much about Fair Lawn. And I did forward the message to Mr. Helpman because I think it does say a lot about Fair Lawn, a lot about the character ed programs that we have at our school and Memorial School. And I actually saw that. I was floored. You know, I teach middle school, and you know, it's sometimes a tough age, but they're very into helping people, and I wanted to share that because I thought it was quite incredible.
we had a student dialogue today. The students, as always, were quite wonderful. I don't really have anything very specific to report other than that we had met, and it seems that the high school is moving along at an excellent pace. Here's one thing that I do want to note. I know that Ms. Piella had taken more notes if she wants to report anything besides this, but one major thing did come out of the meeting, and I'm going to be asking that we could find a day for an education meeting, because they had brought up some issues about testing in the meeting, and they're all very concerned about the amount of testing that they're receiving during their education, as opposed to, and I'm using their words, not mine, as opposed to learning, and they're, I'll paraphrase, I think, burnt out from it. So I was hoping that we could have an education meeting and have a full discussion and allow the administration to present to us, I guess, their side.
I just want to say that Mr. Marcella did address that there was something going on in the works, that they were meeting and reporting. So I think we should wait until their data is back in. I know they visited other schools, and there's a team on it.
Okay, I mean, I don't think it's hurtful for us to hear where they are at this point, and then to hear back later on. So maybe that if there's something of issue, the board can report to the administration our feelings on the trajectory of the report and how we feel that the report should maybe proceed, that we should have some input on that before the report's finished. Not to say that we should interfere with it, but I'd like to hear what's going on and not wait.
Because I wasn't there. What in specifically was the, I mean, we don't control most of the testing, so.
There's just, I think it's like a stressful time of year for them, and then with the addition of the park tests and the changes in the schedule, they were sort of venting a little bit about, like, I think even like regular chapter tests, like there'd be every Friday English vocabulary test on top of the park test, on top of the chapter test. And apparently a lot of the testing was on the same day. Teachers like to finish out on a Friday, so like a lot of teachers are giving tests on the same day. And there used to be a sort of unwritten rule at the high school where certain courses tested on certain days of the week, and that's really not happening, so they were going to look into that. So I understand Jeff bringing it up now, you know, for possible placement on a, so we could just get kind of like an update on what is going on, you know, in regards to what we're looking at, what we're looking for, schedule changes, or you know, trimesters or quarterly, you know, just so that the students could get a feel for, you know, because if everything's going on underneath, you know, and then you wait for it to finish, they don't realize that it's going on. And perhaps if they knew that these things were being looked into, they would maybe be a little less stressed. Like some of the AP students were concerned that because they're missing a few minutes of the classes, they didn't realize that they've already made up like a whole period by the addition of the 15 minutes at the end of the day in the 8th period. So there were some things that just needed to be clarified, and I think it might be a good topic for us to look into. Because years ago we looked at changing the schedules. We went to the 2 lunches, and you know, like the students were kind of like aware of that those things were being looked into, and I think they just. And I think it's just a really stressful time of year for them. The AP tests are coming up, and
Let me share with you. I wasn't able to make that. I was here. I was getting ready for the meeting and so forth. But I need to share something. One is that we are looking and exploring possibly going to quarterlies, which we'll be discussing that further on. But we already sent a number of our administrators of the districts that are running quarterlies to observe, meet with their counterparts, talk about, you know, what challenges did you, you know, incur, how did you plan for it? You know, obviously, if you're going to quarterlies, your pacing has got to change, things, the coverage has got to change. So I arranged to go to another district, and we set our people up. They had a very good talk. Matter of fact, it was very positive for our folks. So that's one thing we're looking at. You know, there's a lot of testing going on. I'm not so sure. I can't comment on, you know, who gets a chapter test. I mean, we can look into that. But certainly there's a lot of testing. As you know, my feelings, you know, park is park. I didn't make it up. We're doing it. I'm dead against 2 windows, 2 testing windows. I think it's ludicrous. One would have been perfect. All I had to do is add another 20 minutes or a half hour, and we would be done with one. The timing is not good. The end of year, it is overlapping with kids getting ready for AP and, all of that. One thing we have authorized is that any teacher who's teaching an AP, I've authorized them additional time to announce to their classes, so they can, anything that they feel they need to, it's already been authorized, the kids can go and they can make that up, not miss anything. So we're trying to cover all bases. Testing itself, I don't think anybody in this room, if anybody here raises their hand and says, I love testing, I think they're kind of over hungry or something. So we understand that. We're really trying to figure out how to do this better for the kids, but make it meaningful. I mean, you can't, I'm certainly, not going to agree to have no testing. I mean, that's ridiculous.
Right.
You got to have testing. Assessment is part of education, is part of learning. But what's right? I mean, we even have with the special ed students that are taking, the new APA, which is now called the digital maps. I mean, digital learning maps. I mean, that stretches like 4 months at a point in time. And our teachers spend literally days preparing and working on that. So it's not only our students, I think the faculty is stressed, and we understand that. One thing we did, which we tried, and I just, quite frankly, got a number of emails over time, we went overboard in training our teachers to get ready. Many have sent us emails thanking us. They're very comfortable. So we understand it's on both sides. But certainly mandates we have to do. I think my observation and what I'm hearing, I think people who decided not to take the park, I think the State Department is going to take that very seriously. And I think there's going to be even more coming out for next year about more demands on how to do these things. So we have our challenges coming to us. So we would be happy to look at that, and anything we can improve on, we want to do that for the students, work with it. But obviously, we have to give some assessments.
I'm sorry.
Joan?
Mr. Marcel did explain that you did meet with people, and he says that you're moving in a positive way in order to make the best for the district decision. And it's not something that's going to come very quickly, but they are working on it.
Correct. Yeah, one of the things, one of the positive outcomes from this park is that we retooled the schedule at the high school. If some of the board members who've been around for a while remember, years ago, I had recommended we go to a modified rotating block schedule, but it just couldn't happen. And one of the things it calls for is a unit lunch. And so what's happening here is we're trying to get creative, and we're looking at, with the park, how lunch is being handled because they've been displaced because we're using the cafeteria. And we came up with some very good outcomes of that, which may help us with our whole scheduling going forward too, come up with a little more creativity in the scheduling. So I think that's a good thing that's come out of it, one of the good things that has come out of this situation. So we're learning a lot. We're learning as we do this too. We certainly don't have all those answers that you all know. So, and again, I give a lot of credit to Natalie for her leadership in this area. And all the training are what our TAs, testing administrators, teachers have stepped up and have done. And the attitude and the cooperation that we have received from the student body has been wonderful. I have to say, kids here are terrific on it.
They are.
Really good about it.
Any other comments from the board? Bruce?
Ready to go?
Yes, please.
Okay, under my comments, we had we announced, we had a change in the design of the referendum building project in Westmoreland for a lot of reasons. This is a copy of their drawing, so it's not a real PowerPoint, it's not that clear, but I wanted to get it fast because we want to get it in. We're behind schedule now. As I said, remember I said we control the finance and hirings, but we can't control construction. So here's one of those things, we're behind with it. But we found out, if you remember, the old design had this wing, this section came straight down, and then it came out this way with some more classes, 3 more classes, remember that? Okay, well, as they go and start surveying and doing all their work, this is a main water line that they found that we can't go by, so we're gonna have to redesign it. So this is the design, this is the right side of the building, well, it's the left side, you're looking from the front, but here's what we're doing. So we're taking the classrooms that were here in the hallway, and we kind of turned it a little bit and brought it up here. And it's another, so that gives you, you know, the view of where that water line runs. We'd be right into it. We can't do that utilities. So, let me see if I can get this without losing anything.
Bruce, how big is that water line?
It's huge. It's the main water line.
Is that the main one coming from the
That's
pump
the main,
house?
yeah.
That's the one coming from the pump house?
So. This might be, copy these three, yeah. So here's the whole school. So this is what it would look like. And this is the front, Palmley is up here. Okay, so you're coming in right here, front doors. And this is the multi-purpose room, and then this is the new media center, and the classrooms are over here. And I have one more I can go over with you, but if you look at this, we've actually set up special ed classrooms in certain classrooms, resource rooms, music rooms, etc. We really set the whole, we designed the whole school. And we have some K-1, 2, LBLD special ed classrooms that we put over here in this area with the first and second kindergarten area, so they generate very positive student interaction. Over here we have the 4 and 5 and the CI. We have 2 CI classes that we want to probably look to move over here. So you have, now this wing, we would put the music in this area here, and then you would have resource room, math, and literacy here. This is a dividing area for speech, I'll read what we wrote on these, sorry. It's what? OT and speech, and this one was,
Language arts.
yes, well, we moved it, it's now art and reach are here, right. And this would be music, band and music program, okay? And then up here you would have 2 special ed programs. Probably it's the CI, you have a 5th grade, 4, 5, LBLD, and then obviously some classrooms. This is the new kindergarten, so you pick up that as a classroom. And the media center still has a foyer where in the evenings you can run an event at the media center and block off so they can't make access to the school, etc. So we still have that down there.
I understand the need to move that to the other area, but why was that not proposed originally to place it there?
Well, it was just from the original diagram, we thought it would be better down here. I mean, just from, a design phase. You also have a hill here, which is now going to cause us to cut into this, which we didn't want to do. So, you have a big grade on this side, so now this is going to go over and cut into that hill, so we have a different walkway coming from the street over here down. We're going to have to put a different wall here than we wanted to put in.
Is that going to increase the costs?
Maybe, I don't know until we did it, we'll have to take a look. But it would have been easier. The only thing I could say that doing this, I think we saved this big beautiful tree that we were going to have. I'm serious, no, I'm serious. There's a gorgeous tree right here, and that was going to have to go. And I was breaking my heart looking at that, So I'm saying, how do we do this? We looked at the cost of digging it and moving it, it was too expensive. But I think now, moving the classrooms, I think we keep that tree. That's important, trees are important.
I'm curious, when these plans were made, there was no way to tell that the main water line was there?
No,
No.
no. That comes with surveys, it comes with,
Like there are no surveys that would tell us where the main water lines in town?
well, no, there is, that's how we found it out. But at first, you're starting, to design it, and then you have to go look, and then you have to actually get on site plans and track that down.
So we don't know that there's not something else under this?
Well, we do now, they did all of that.
Okay.
That's a whole nother, you're paying for that. That's all part of the cost. So you want to get the design, and you want to look and, do a survey.
All right, this is backwards.
So, anybody else have any questions? So we're going to, tomorrow morning, Joanne will call. Joanne, do you want to add anything to this, or
No, you
cover it? Joanne will call Land tomorrow, give them the go-ahead, we'll get this submitted. And again, it's put us back, a number of weeks now, so we're gonna try to make that up. But as I said, start thinking Plan B. Plan B is you probably won't have full-day kindergarten to December, January 1 timeframe, so we should start thinking that, looking at it.
They're gonna submit the new set of plans to the state.
Yes.
The old set never went to the state.
I don't know that. I can't answer.
So they're gonna, you wanna send them down like the next couple of days?
Oh, yeah.
right away.
Yeah,
Preliminary approval on the first. They probably have preliminary approval on the first.
Yeah, they
Yeah,
probably did.
the rough drawings outline, yeah. Okay? Anybody else have any questions?
Did you lose anything having to do with this?
Everything we had planned on is still there. Yeah. And we gained a tree. Anything else? Okay, thanks. And I just have a couple of more short comments. Okay, just a couple of comments. One is, which we touched on a little bit, we have one more week and Park is pretty much done. We have finished in the number of the elementary schools, and we have another week to go. High school has another week. Middle schools are in great shape. Overall, for what we own, the assets we have, the resources we have, it's really gone much better than anyone thought it was going to go. We have, again, a lot of positive responses. I'm not talking about, having to sit and take the test. We understand that's mixed feelings, but for what we had to do, we did. We've accomplished this. I think it was very good. And it was a lot of people. And I give kudos to the staff who took leadership roles. They were terrific and became very knowledgeable. So that's gone on. Last two nights, unfortunately, I was at two other places. We did have our annual art show. Natalie went. And a number of the supervisors were there, some principals were there. And the report is that, like always, the art show was phenomenal. And the kids did just a great job. And for those of you who were able to see it, you enjoyed it. And for those who didn't make it, take our word for it. It was great. I want to give a congratulations to Mr. Gene Packer, one of our Dr. Gene. He is named the boys fencing coach of the year this year. Great achievement. Matter of fact, you know how much I love the NJSIAA, and I am the Bergen County rep. I'm the executive committee member for Bergen County. And I was at Seton Hall today with Mr. Marcella giving a presentation to just about 100 superintendent and assistant superintendents and ADs. What is the NJSIAA? What's the changes that have happened? What's now happening? And I think it was pretty positive. I'm very happy when we get our name down there. And as you know, we have had a number of league titles and state titles, and our name is looked upon as being very professional down there with our people and our coaches and our kids, our student athletes. So that's really great. And Seton Hall is still there. If anybody's looking to go to Seton Hall, it's still there. Bridges 2, I guess we've all heard about the good news. Bridges 2 won the IKEA classroom, thanks to everybody who's calling in. A $10,000 prize for a makeover, and I'm sure glad it's not makeup. That's all I ever hear about from my daughters is, makeovers there. So I think nails and makeup. So this has to do with classroom, so I think that's more positive. So, congratulations to that. And we will have some closed session items to discuss, and we will come out to take a vote for at least one of those items. Thank you.
go to the agenda report. Mike asked if he could read the first resolution, so Mike.
Resolution regarding the retirement of Eileen Friedman. Whereas Mrs. Eileen Friedman, a dedicated teacher in Spanish, employed by the Fairlawn School District since 1981, has requested retirement at the end of the day on June 30th, 2015. And whereas Eileen Friedman was instrumental in having her students acquire the mastery of a foreign language, as well as greater understanding and respect for the culture and customs of a diverse national group, and whereas Eileen Friedman, during her 10-year service in our school district, reflected a profound and genuine concern for the educational advancement and general welfare of those students whom she taught, therefore be it resolved that the Secretary to the Board of Education be directed to spread this resolution in full upon the minutes of the Board of Education, and that the Superintendent of Schools dispatch a copy of this resolution to Mrs. Eileen Friedman.
Thank you, Mike. Can I have a motion to approve S1?
So moved.
Second.
Comments from the board? Mike?
Well, an error is just about over for me, because in my years at Fairlawn Schools, Mrs. Friedman is my last teacher from the high school that's still employed. Actually, Mrs. Colgan is still here as a speech teacher, but as a subject teacher. Mrs. Friedman, I think I had her first year of teaching at the high school, and I am not a good student of foreign language. Matter of fact, I'm a very difficult student of foreign language. But Mrs. Friedman was incredible back then, and I've seen her at work at TJ, and she is incredible with the middle school kids. So I wish her a lot of luck in her retirement, and again, a lot of brain drain retiring this year. So.
Thanks, Mike. Mary?
Yes, well, I of course taught with Eileen for many, many years at Thomas Jefferson, having known her before that. And she was always a highly respected teacher with a wonderful work ethic and a nice colleague in the faculty room, which is always important. You always want a happy faculty room. And yes, I'm starting to see people retire that pretty soon they'll be retiring, because I don't remember those people. I'm gone for a while now, but I wish her a lot of happiness, and her retirement is well deserved. She worked very hard for the Fairlawn Schools.
Elise?
I just want to say that my daughter had Miss Friedman and went on to become I'm actually not sure how they grade them, but she graduated from college with a degree in Spanish. So she instilled, I guess, a love of the language, and it's continuing in high school, and KG has a dual major. I actually saw her recently and told her that KG had pursued a Spanish degree, and she was very, very excited about it.
Any other comments from the board? Bruce?
I've known Eileen ever since I was in the district just a long time, and she's always been the professional, very good. And she's a very nice lady. She was in my office the other day. We were talking about her retirement. She was sharing some things with me. So, we wish her a lot of happiness and good health, etc. And one of the things that, besides her being a talented Spanish foreign language teacher, is I'm from the old school. I like teachers that dress professional. I mean, they come to work, and she's always dressed sharp. Always dressed professional. And that's a real nice role model for young people to see that, And we do have, by the way, as you well know, we do have a dress code for employees, and most of them do a fine job. Eileen was always very professional, and not only in her attire, but in her mannerisms, and in her friendship, and the way she treated people, etc. So we certainly wish her the very best.
Any comments from the audience on S1? Seeing none, roll call, please. Mr. Klein?
Yes.
Mr. Banta?
Yes.
Mr. Rosenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Barbarulo?
Yes.
Mr. Stendel?
Yes.
Mrs. Frankel?
Yes.
Mrs. Wallace? Yes. Mrs. Kayla?
Yes.
Ms. Crawford?
Yes. Okay, S2, approval of Radburn Health and Fitness Scholarship in memory of Bruce L. Hurley. S3, approval of Fairlawn High School SGO Overdrive Scholarship. S4, approval of Fairlawn High School Girls Volleyball Scholarship. S5, approval of Ben's Progress Club Memorial Scholarship. E1, attendance at conferences, convention, and workshop. E2, approval of extracurricular trips. E3, approval of student, teachers, interns, practicum, field observation placement. E4, approval of bedside home instruction. E5, approval of changes to the 14-15 after-school workshop. E6, approval of after-school workshops. E1, approval of leave of absence without pay, custodial personnel. E2, approval of certificated day-to-day substitutes and bedside home instruction personnel. P3, change in assignment of non-certificated personnel. P4, approval of leave of absence without pay, child rearing certificated personnel. P5, approval to amend appointment of personnel schedule D positions. P6, appointment of non-certificated hourly personnel. P7, approval of leave of absence without pay, non-certificated hourly personnel. P8, approval of retirement of custodial personnel. SE1, approval of tuition transportation to special schools providing regular special education. SE2, approval of required related services for classified students. SE3, approval of out-of-district students from tuition-paying sending districts. May I have a motion to approve S1 through SE3?
So moved.
Second.
Comments from the board? Jeff?
I'll take after you, Mary, if you'd like.
No, go ahead.
Okay.
It's all yours.
All right. I'd like to thank those who have taken the time to put together and donate money to our students. It's no mystery now, the cost of college, not to mention the cost of books and everything that goes along with it. So thank you to the Radburn PTA, to SGO Overdrive, our people here, the girls volleyball program, I hope I don't miss anybody here, the Men's Progress Club, and I think I got all of them. Again, thank you. I recognize that it's not the monetary amount, the fact that you've thought of our students and that you've gone out of your way to be part of our community. I'm sure if Ms. Lindsay was here, those people would also get a Lindsay dollar per care. There you go. So, thank you.
Mike?
I just want to, obviously, I echo the scholarship. The one scholarship that I just want to mention, because I believe it was the day after our last monthly meeting, SGO Overdrive. For anyone that doesn't know, SGO Overdrive is a group of teachers and administrators that have formed a band. And they played at a local restaurant the Friday after our Thursday meeting. And I did attend, and to see the principal of the high school, the vice principal of the high school, and the many teachers that are in the band, and they do sound good. They do sound good. To see them do it, and the only reason they were playing that night was for the scholarship. So all the money that was raised is going to the scholarship. So I really, it's just a nice thing. It's a nice thing.
Any other comments from the board? Comments from the public on those agenda items? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Klein?
Yes.
Mr. Banta?
Yes.
Mr. Rosenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Barbarulo?
Yes.
Mr. Stendel?
Yes.
Mrs. Frankel? Yes. Mrs. Wallace? Yes. Mrs. Piela?
Yes.
Ms. Crawford?
Yes. Last part of the agenda, F1 school use, F2 acceptance of gifts, F3 discards, F4 bills payable payroll, F5 bills payable, F6 transfers, March 2015. F7 board secretary report, February 2015. F8 board treasurer's report, February 2015. F9 approval of special situation busing for 2015-16. And we have one addendum, which you have in your packet, addendum number 1, approval of access agreement. I have a motion to approve F1 through addendum number 1.
So moved.
Comments from the board? Ron?
Again, as usual, it's great to see the gifts that we get to the board, especially from the Chinese STEM. So again, I really, really appreciate any organization or any parent or anything that helps give money to help the parents of our children.
Jeff?
I want to thank the administration for allowing the nice 50th to use the memorial site field. If anyone has not been to that circus yet, the Circus for Charity, I recommend them to stop by and check it out. It's very nice to see all the groups come in and take part and be entertained. I also just want to thank Mr. Watson for putting on this agenda, again, the special situation busing, and allowing that to happen for all the students who are on, I guess, the other side of Broadway. Thanks for creating a much safer situation for our children to get to school. And I say that specifically because my daughter will be one of those students. So, and you know what, the cost is extremely effective and I believe very appropriate.
Mary?
Yes, F2B. Am I correct that this required the participation of the administration, teachers, and students to do something to get this money? I mean, they didn't just give $650. They had to, yeah. So I want to thank the administration, teachers, and all the children, because that money came to us because of the work of our staff and the children in school.
Thank you, Mary. Any other comments from the board? Comments from the audience on the rest of the agenda items? Seeing none, roll call.
Mr. Klein?
Yes.
Mr. Banfield?
Yes.
Mr. Rosenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Barbarulo?
Yes.
Mr. Stendhal?
Yes.
Mrs. Franco?
Yes.
Mrs. Wallace?
Yes.
Ms. Crawford? Ms. Fiala?
Yes.
Yes. I'd like to open up the meeting for public comments. To anybody in the public that wishes to say anything they want to comment on, I just ask that you state your name for the record. Yes.
My name is Mike Criley. Can I go?
Sure can.
I'm the father of twin girls who are on the girls varsity basketball team. I met with Mr. Marcel and Mr. Robinson on February 11, 2015 regarding allegations against Coach Chris Laverme. My wife and I also met with Mr. Robinson last year on March 17, 2014 to bring the same allegations regarding Coach Chris Laverme and his lack of teaching the fundamentals of the game and also protective skills. I informed Mr. Robinson that in the NJSCA Coach's Handbook, all coaches are required to teach protective skills. At that time, he informed my wife and I that probably all of his coaches are in violation of that. At that time, we thought the situation would have been taken care of, so we didn't pursue it. It was not. It continued through the next season. I spoke to Mr. Marcel this past Tuesday, March 17th, and asked him regarding my allegations last year and why an investigation was never done. He informed me that at that time, HIB did not pertain to adult on student unless I misunderstood him. I emailed him on Wednesday the 18th at 7:50 a.m. for clarification and had not yet received a response. I contacted the NJDOE and asked if the law had ever been changed regarding this, and they told me no. The woman there referred me to their website for the frequently asked questions on page 13, number 4. It states, does the ABR only apply to an act of HIB committed against a student, or does it also apply to an act committed against an adult? Additionally, does the ABR apply to an adult who commits an act of HIB or only to a student offender? The ABR applies only to HIB committed against a student. There is no reference in the ABR to HIB committed against adult. Under the ABR, the offenders could be any persons, students or adults. but the victims are students. The applicable provision can be found at NJSA 18A:37-15B. I know there have been other parents who have complained about Mr. Lermy in the past, and I wonder if there should have been an investigation, but there wasn't because the law was misinterpreted. Regardless of what may be in the BOE policy regarding retaliation, we're reporting this to the administration and to the BOE. I am taking a risk with my 2 girls' future in the varsity basketball program here at Fairlawn. Actually, it will only be one daughter. My one daughter has already informed me that if Mr. Lermy is back next year, she will not be playing, and my other daughter is not sure yet. I don't want you to think I have a bone to pick with the coaching staff here at Fairlawn. Both of my daughters have had great coaches here at Fairlawn, including Mr. Van Soest, Egan, Orth, and Lebinsky. None of these coaches treated my kids this way. My son also had the opportunity to play for Rick McKelliff, who was the head varsity basketball coach at Fairlawn, and what a great experience he had. He was a true coach. I will restate here what I stated to Mr. Robinson and Mr. Marcel in my last meeting with them. My only concern is for the welfare of the kids on the basketball team. This man and his coaching staff have created an atmosphere which in turn has made it a miserable experience for them. I am asking that if and when you need to approve his contract for this coming season, that you don't rubber stamp your approval. If you look and listen to what the parents and girls have to say about this man and their experiences, that you close your eyes and imagine your child being subject to what these players have had to endure, and you vote no on renewing his contract. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Riley. Any other comments from the public? Yes.
Hi, my name is Alan Kiley. I have the same 2 daughters at Fairlawn High School who have played on several teams, including the girls' basketball team. I have been asked by Alexa Nicolau, who is unable to be here tonight, to read a letter that she has sent to Mr. Robinson while a student at the high school. What she says in this letter are examples of incidences of what I believe is a pattern of behavior that occurs by the coaching staff of the girls' basketball program. I removed names and will instead use coach and will only read excerpts from the letter. She would like for you to have a copy of this letter, and then you can read it in its entirety. In quotes, when I was a member of the team, I never had the courage to speak up about the truth of the coaching. Despite my unhappiness, I played for Coach for 2 full seasons. In my freshman year, Mr. Orff was the coach. I had a wonderful experience. However, once I made the varsity team in my sophomore year, my positive experiences with basketball were quickly forgotten. I remember my first varsity game. I was put in for the last 2 minutes and missed a rebound. Coach took out a full timeout to berate me in front of the entire team because of the mistake I had made. At the end of the year dinner, Coach gave speeches in front of the team and families. When he started talking about me, his words were insulting. Instead of saying words of praise, he focused on the stretching of my back I would have to do before each practice and game. He nicknamed me Gumby because of my constant stretching, and said this aloud to everyone in the room. He also said, I never thought she would get up off the floor. Parents and teammates came up to my mother and me after the dinner to express their outrage and shock to his comments. These experiences should have warned me to stop my basketball career. Yet, I subjected myself to another miserable basketball season. End quote. I, myself, can empathize with Alexa, because last year I had a similar experience at the dinner with one of my daughters with a speech given by the coaches. I thank you for your time, and I want you to know that I wish I didn't have to be here tonight. This is an ongoing issue that we have tried to resolve over the past couple of years to no avail. This is not just about my daughters, but a larger issue, creating a detriment to many. Please take a serious look at all involved.
Thank you, Mrs. Riley. Yes?
Yeah.
My name is Kathy Vanderteens. My husband and I met with Mr. Robinson last year, March 17, 2014, regarding Coach Lermy. I didn't feel the meeting was productive because every time we tried to speak concerning the negative treatment from the coach towards our daughter, Tara, Mr. Robinson would interrupt our conversation. At one point, I had to say, may I please say something without being interrupted. At the end of the meeting, Mr. Robinson told us that someone in the office would meet with the varsity players individually to get their input. I gave Mr. Robinson almost 4 pages of documentation. On May 1st, 2014, almost 2 months after our initial meeting, I sent a follow-up concerned email to Mr. Robinson since I knew my daughter was never called down to the office. I never received a reply to my follow-up email, and shortly afterwards, Tara was called down for her input. At the start of Tara's senior year, we were hoping there would be some changes in reference to our previous concerns. Tara decided to play her last year since she loves basketball and she gets along with her teammates. Well, it was even worse this past season with the entire coaching staff. It's unfortunate that the school doesn't have hidden audio recording in the locker room because a lot of degrading and reprimanding takes place in that room. I'm sure if someone higher up was present, Coach Lavergne would tone it down. For instance, at an away game on February 5th, 2015 at Passaic Valley, we were leaving the game and a couple approached us outside the school and asked if we were from Fairlawn. The couple said, "Your team has so much talent. How did you ever lose any games?" Then the couple stated, "And by the way, I heard your coach speak to your girls and was appalled to hear how he spoke to them." And I quote, "He spoke to them like they were dogs. What a shame. I can't believe another parent from another school notices our coach's behavior. It sure doesn't look good for Fairlawn High School." Another player suggested the coaches should demonstrate the proper way of doing drills if someone is doing it wrong. Coach Cat replied, "You're on varsity, right? You should know the right way by now." Coach Lavergne tries to make captains responsible for everything, but some issues are solely the coach's responsibility and should be kept private. For example, he told the captains that a certain player, and he stated her name, was failing 2 subjects, and it was the captain's responsibility to stay on top of that player. Shouldn't that be confidential between the player and the coach? Coach Lavergne provokes the girls. For example, my daughter is a starter on the team, but one game she didn't start. At the end of the game, he approached her and said, "That was a test when I didn't start you, and you handled it well. I just wanted to see how you would react." Please understand that my daughter loved basketball. It was in her heart and soul, and now the love of the game was taken away forever. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, this one's quick. So my name is Melissa Vanderteems. I'm the sister of senior captain Tara Vanderteems. I just wanted to talk about a couple of things that surprised me at the basketball dinner. First of all, Tara gave a speech, and it included her negative experiences, which took some people off guard. But at the end, they clapped for a full 15 seconds, 7 of which were actually over Coach at the podium trying to talk. I think this speaks a lot to the general distaste for Coach Lavergne. And while my sister was speaking on her own behalf, she did touch a lot of underclassmen who feel victimized and are afraid to speak up. The parents of those kids actually thanked Tara at the end of the dinner, which I also think speaks to the maltreatment of the girls. Another thing that happened was a parent made a slideshow. It was over 15 minutes long, and Coach Tim was the only coach you watched. It was really unprofessional and disrespectful because the slideshow was actually really nice and well done. Clearly took a lot of time. And then lastly, when he gave his speeches for the girls, it was done very unprofessionally and I feel it was manipulative. He announced the honors received by the starting 5 first, and then he sat down. The honors happened to be received by the starting 5. And then Coach Cat gave her speech. And everyone seemed very upset because it didn't seem like he would talk about the rest of the players or about the rest of the seniors. When he finally got up, relief swept the audience, making him look like some kind of hero. But this is manipulative, and it's something he does to the girls a lot. He gives them a letdown when he follows through with an obligation or responsibility he has as a coach. It looks like he is doing everyone a favor. It was shocking to watch that unfold and work on adults too. Thank you.
Any other comments from the public?
If everybody else is done with that, can I speak again for Mrs. Fife, who can't be here tonight?
Yes, of course.
Okay. Mrs. Fife, she's the parent of one of the players on the high school team. She's not a varsity player, but she's a JV, but has interactions with the varsity. Hello, my name is Zena Fife, and I hope all I state will not affect the future of my daughter's chance of playing basketball for the Fairlawn High School system in the future. First, let's define coach from Webster's Dictionary: a person who teaches and trains an athlete or performer. Trains the members of a sports team, could also be called a teacher. With all that I stated, these are not the things that I saw displayed at the varsity basketball games. My daughter would come home from practices and tell me how teammates were called out and picked on, how lessons were not focused with positive reinforcement. I was told numerous times that all Coach Laverme does is scream at them and bring out all negative comments. Example, you're not here for your dribbling or passing, don't do anything, just shoot. And this person never went into games. And then he does not choose to help or correct whatever he feels is being done incorrectly. Teaching, lack of. I witnessed on many occasions, sitting in the stands at home games, the comments and threats he made to the varsity team about playtime in a gruff voice and mean face. Quote, your time in the game depends on your attitude. I am watching you, unquote. And then walked away, crossed the court, and stood arms crossed, talking with Coach Cat and staring him down. Very comforting as a parent, not. I asked one of the girls why he said that. She replied, that's how he talks to us, as she rolled her eyes, very positive. I was shocked. They were watching and cheering on the JV team exactly what he instructed them to do. What is his motivation? I've coached for a long time and have never made any child feel threatened or degraded. I can't believe a person put in this position does not know how to talk and encourage the girls' team. Pitting teammates against each other. Why? Cohesiveness is going to make you motivated and want to win. I witnessed times when a player was put in the game, scored 3 points, and aggressively steal and defend the ball to be taken out of the game and never again that player put back in. There were games this player sat for games. Again, what is the coach thinking? Scoring and defense are part of the game of basketball. As the season progressed, a bullying or segregation seemed to take place with this player. At first, as a fan, I thought, okay, maybe she doesn't feel well or something. To the progression of the player not even sitting with the lineup and then always in her warm-up jacket. I played high school sports, and yes, at this stage of the games, you want to win. How do you win? If you don't put the good players in. His actions seemed very juvenile, especially when everyone knows that player is talented in the game. It was apparent it was personal, never acknowledging the player when relief was needed. I didn't like some of my coaches, but they were fair and not petty and did not succumb to being a juvenile, like the ones that he is supposed to be training. These young ladies are still children and still being molded to having successful futures. The last comment I will make is that my daughters also mentioned that 3 coaches took the same player into the locker room and would not let anyone witness the confrontation. You know, this is 2015 and there are too many laws to protect our children. Who was protecting this young lady? She came out crying. This is a form of harassment and or bullying. Why not have a team captain present? If 3 coaches were with this player who was coaching the rest of the team, and as I found out later, it was over the player asking why she wasn't being put in the game. There's freedom of speech. Are you not allowed to ask? Young ladies of today should be commended for asking questions. They are our future, and there will be enough people out there letting life go by without asking why or how or where. Knowledge is a great tool, and if used right, you can succeed. Thank you for time. Thank you for your time, and please remember, we are molding our future. Please keep this in mind that these young ladies are our future. We want them to be smart, intelligent, and confident. Thank you.
Yes.
Sorry to put it down on everything.
I have a comment not related to any of this. Mr. Watson, I have a question about aftercare, and in situations like tomorrow. It's unclear, and I've asked a question before, and I think I get questions from other parents as well. Is aftercare always open, no matter what?
Yes.
No matter what?
Yes.
Okay, and that's, okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from the audience? Yes.
My name is Mitchell Pinko. I was just, we were talking about Park earlier. I was just wondering what are the current opt-out percentages, or if we have any numbers currently.
Yeah, we do. That's a good question. We do. We're not as bad as some of the surrounding schools. I think we had a little bit of a rush. Mr. Marcello just walked in, so you can correct. We had a little bit of a rush the weekend before the sophomores of this week were going to take it. We had about, I think, 20 sophomores at that point in time, or maybe 18 sophomores at that time. Let us know they're not going to take it. But across the district, we're really doing very, very well. I would say we're probably about maybe, at this point, last count, about 3.5% to 4%. If you look at all of those students who are eligible to sit for the test, so we're not too bad. And I think, you know, that's some of it's expected. By the way, I'll share a couple of things. You know, if it was presented a little differently by the state, I think more people would have accepted the challenge and more students would have taken it. I think the state had made some comments earlier that didn't help us. For instance, prior to taking Park, they announced that, you know, you don't have to pass the Park until 2019, which is not true, by the way. And what they added to that was, which people would pick up on, was there's a state law that requires every high school graduate to pass a high school assessment. That's a law. So after they had made that announcement, they said, well, there are some sub-assessments that we're crediting, which I'm sure all of you students know about. So the SAT and PSAT, the ACT, etc. Well, to announce that to you know, students who are, you know, in sophomore year or junior year, you know, at this point in time, really doesn't help the cause if you want somebody to sit for the test. So the way this whole thing was delivered and having, like I said, I don't like the 2 sessions. I think it's over, I don't want to use that word, but it's too much. You know, so I think if they rolled it out differently and they would have talked to some more superintendents about how, you know, how do we talk about it, I think it would have been even more successful. But I do know, looking at the surrounding districts, we've done very well with our participation. That's why I compliment the kids. You know, challenges are always going to be there for you as you get through high school, go to college, and get out and try to get a career. And taking a challenge, when you know, I've already made the announcement, we're not going to use the data, you know, for placement purposes here for the next few years, etc. So I'm going to live with that, and so is the board, and so is the administration. So we want people to get experience. We want you to understand what it's all about, because they're going to change. When they get back this test data, and they see how the state performed their first time against, quote, whole first time, because we did have some part questions on the New Jersey Ask the last couple of years, feathering it in and so forth. But when they see this, and they see they're going to change, and they're going to adjust to it. You know, but there's other reasons why this is happening. But Common Core, whether you know people think it's good or bad, it's here, and you got to write assessments that are going to measure the understanding to the Common Core. And this will do that, and the data that we get from it, we'll look at it, and hopefully in the next couple of years we'll make good sense out of it. And if they came out with that kind of delivery, you know, I think we all would have been better off, and the state itself. And these movements that are out there, my gosh, there's so many of these movements. I can't believe the websites and all of these form letters, and that, it's, you know, trying to understand why people are panicking. I mean, you know, it's just try it, you know. So anyway, that's where we stand. I guess I answered your question in 5 more. Sorry about that, but I do have some opinions on it.
Any other comments from the public? I want to thank you for coming tonight and sharing your comments with us. I'd like to move on to old business.
I don't know if it's open because Mr. Fanto was here when we first discussed it, that we wanted to make sure that we had a relations meeting to discuss the accomplishments, some of the accomplishments we have and how to promote.
Well, we have a meeting coming up. So,
okay.
April 6th, that's the policy.
We have a minute to discuss.
You know, okay,
But we did say we weren't going to meet unless we said we were.
You know, we said we were gonna meet though because of the street fair. So if you have an agenda
Is it
item,
on the meeting list already?
Yes, sir.
so just shoot me an email
Thank you.
and we can talk about it.
Any other old business?
Yeah, we voted on it.
Okay, I'm going to go to new business. I have a couple of comments I'd like to address before I turn it over to the board. I received an email from Shelley Gansky, who's president of New Jersey School Boards. She's going to be, for Bergen County, I'm sorry. She's going to be coming to our meeting on April 30th. So I'm asking her to come at 7, and then our budget meeting will be at 7:30 as originally scheduled. And I just wanted to share that with the board, that she had reached out and said that she was in the process of visiting all of the various districts in Bergen County, and she wanted to put us on the list, so, she had given us some dates. I talked it over with Joanne and Sandy, and, I sent her a reply, and she's coming on April 30th. That's number one. I think the board all received, letters from, Jill regarding the Radburn Playground, and I just wanted to publicly thank her for the dollars and also for the kind words that she said.
I want to be there at like 7 o'clock.
Just wanted to thank her for the kind words that she said about us and the administration. And I don't. We had a proposal from a gentleman regarding the tree walk I had shared with the board a long time ago. It was an incentive that was going to be done with the borough, and they approached the district to see if they could put the names of the trees on different areas for a walk through the districts. Bruce had thought it was a good idea, and he put together a proposal. He brought it to the borough. The borough approved the proposal this past week, so you're going to be noticing that several of our trees in our schools are all going to be named, and hopefully we can fit that into the curriculum, which I think is a very good thing. We did, however, ask that they postpone naming the trees at Westmoreland, since it would be a construction area, and we could do that at a later date after the school is complete. And that's all I have as far as new business. Anybody else have new business? Mike?
The next shared services meeting has to be changed, the date has to be changed. We have to get a date because it's the same night as Dr. Beach's. No, I don't have a date yet, but.
Then how do you invite everybody to Dr.
She's definitely working.
Standing room order. Anybody, any other new business before we go to our meetings? According to our master schedule, policy, but I do believe we have that already set, correct?
Yeah, policy.
On the 6th. So
I will be first and then.
I will not be at the.
Policy first and then.
And followed by the community relations after policy meeting on the 6th, and that is at 7:30.
Do you want to review which meetings we have already?
Yes, so I don't repeat myself, that would be fine.
Okay, April 6th is policy at 7:30. April 6th is community relations immediately following policy. The 16th of April is the monthly board meeting at 7:30. April 30th is the public budget hearing and adoption here at 7:30. But at 7 o'clock we are having the New Jersey School Board record coming at 7 o'clock.
According to our meeting list, there,
Excuse me, just one
I'm
more.
sorry.
May 2nd is the board retreat. I just want to repeat that so everybody remembers that. You have that on your
What time is it?
Can you say which one?
The retreat.
Retreat, 8:30 in the morning, library at the high school.
Till 1 or 2 o'clock?
I think we're doing 1.
Okay.
Mayor, I just want to let everybody know that on Wednesday, April 1st, April 8th, April 15th, and April 22nd, these are all negotiation meetings, committee meetings.
And also, there's supposed to be an athletic committee meeting scheduled for April, but we don't need to have that meeting.
I want to go to the ground thing. So it's, we got to discuss construction.
All right, you want to put it outside?
Well, I can have it either, I'm supposed to have it the second Thursday, so you can either do April 9th if you want to do it, or you can go to, April 9th, or do the 13th, whatever day you want.
I will be out of town April 9th. I'd appreciate it if we could keep it on
Want to do the 13th? 13th, okay with you?
No, it's not.
Are you ready? 7 o'clock, all right?
Yeah.
So
I might be a little bit late, but go ahead and do it for 7. I just might be like 5 minutes late.
Thank you.
I may not be able to attend because of work experience, but if I can, I will.
Yeah, we'll do it.
The time for negotiations, Lisa, is the
Usually it's 7.
7. Just, you can put 7 down for all of them. We may meet earlier, but the meeting time, right. For the meeting list, it's 7. Correct?
It's actually 6:30. The 8th is 7. The 15th will be at 6, and the 22nd will be at 6:30.
And there's also one March 30th.
Wait, how did
That's
the 22nd go to 6:30?
I'm in April,
Yeah, how did April 22nd go to 6:30? 7 o'clock.
to meet before time.
Oh, to be before time.
I'm sorry, 7 o'clock.
Okay, 7 o'clock.
7 o'clock.
You said the first is 6:30.
Yes,
And the 8th is 7.
that's also 7, never mind, Jean. I wrote down the time we meet.
We
The
meet with
first
them at
is
7, but we
7.
meet at 6.
The 8th is
They're all
7. They're all 7. They're 7.
And March 30th also is a negotiation meeting.
Which date is it, March 30th?
Are we all right with meetings? Mike?
On Tuesday, March 24th, is a Bergen County meeting.
Yes.
Bergen County is meeting communicating with legislators, and it's at the New Milford Police Station.
What is that?
Time is that?
March 24th, 6 o'clock to 6:45 is registration and dinner, and the program starts at 6:45. Mary, I hate to say this, there's a chance, May 2nd is my father's 80th birthday, and we just called out of town for it. I may be able to be here in the morning, but it depends on how things shake, just so you know.
As long as we have 7 members in attendance. Is there anybody else that might have a conflict May 2nd? Because if we don't have 7 members in attendance, we don't qualify, and we're very close to becoming a master board. Very, very close. Okay, everybody good. Great.
Can I have a motion to recess into closed session after the 5-minute recess?
Second.
So moved.
All in favor?
Yeah, we're happy. You made it, congratulations. Yeah, I'd like to see that pop in close letters, please. Are you going to Hawaii still? I cannot wait to go.